A classy, loyal wife discovers her husband still wants his ex in his life every weekend. Broken but not destroyed, she chooses dignity over humiliation, quietly planning her exit and leaving him with a letter as she boards a flight to London to rebuild her life. I always believed that love was a promise, a quiet, sacred bond that two people chose every single day. For years, I thought my marriage was built on that promise. I thought I was enough. I thought I was his beginning and his ending. But I was wrong. The first cracks were small, almost invisible, so easy to ignore. But betrayal doesn't storm in at once. It drips. It stains. And by the time you realize what's happening, your entire world is already flooded. He began leaving the house every Saturday morning. At first, I didn't question it. I trusted him. He said he needed space, time for himself, time to breathe. We were married, not chained, so I tried to understand. But weekends turned into rituals. Same hours. Same silence. Same distance. And slowly, his eyes stopped coming home even when his body did. I remember one Sunday afternoon. The sunlight was warm across the living room, and I asked him softly, "Are you happy with me?" He didn't even look up from his phone. He just shrugged and said, "Can we not do this now?" That was the moment I felt something break in my chest, a quiet tear, in a place nobody could see. But I still stayed gentle. I still stayed hopeful. I still believed love could fix anything. But love can't fix a heart that's beating somewhere else. One evening, he came home smelling unfamiliar. Not perfume, not alcohol, but a memory. A scent of something that didn't belong to me. I asked where he had been, and he answered too quickly, too sharply, like honesty was an inconvenience. His tone had changed. His voice had changed. Even the way he placed his keys on the table had changed. Distance has a sound, and once you notice it, you can't unhear it. Days passed, then weeks, and the truth started showing up in pieces. A photo I wasn't supposed to see. A message he forgot to delete. A sudden smile at his phone. He wasn't living with me anymore, not emotionally. I was sharing my house, my bed, my life with a man who had already left me, but stayed only out of comfort. Then came the night that shattered everything. He sat across from me at the dining table, calm, casual, as if he were discussing dinner plans. And he said it, without hesitation, without shame. "I want to spend weekends with her. Just weekends. You have the weekdays. Isn't that fair enough?" My hands froze around the glass of water I was holding. I stared at him, waiting for something, regret, panic, guilt, anything human. But he just stared back, like he had proposed a business deal, not a betrayal. He wanted me from Monday to Friday and her for Saturday and Sunday. Like I was a schedule, not a wife. Like my heart was an option, not a commitment. I didn't cry. Not then. Not in front of him. Some pains are so deep they dry the tears before they even fall. I asked one question. Just one. Why her? He leaned back, sighed, and spoke so casually that his words felt like knives wrapped in cotton. Because she understands me. Because she makes me feel alive. But I don't want to lose you either. You're stable. You're home. She's excitement. Stable. Home. Background. Safety net. That's what I was to him. Not a partner. Not a choice. Just a quiet place to return to when he got tired of chasing his thrill. That night, as he slept peacefully beside me, I stared at the ceiling and realized the truth. He didn't deserve my tears. He didn't deserve my pain. He didn't deserve the version of me that loved without limits. I turned to look at him, this stranger I once called my forever, and I felt nothing but cold clarity. The next day, I smiled, cooked breakfast, spoke softly, acted normal. Because sometimes the most powerful revenge is silence. Not screaming, not begging, just silence. I listened to his weekend plans with her, pretending I wasn't breaking inside. But inside that silence, I was building something. A decision. A new beginning. A life where my worth wasn't reduced to weekdays. He had no idea that I had already begun to disappear. That week, I contacted an old friend in London. I told her everything, and she didn't pity me. She reminded me who I was before marriage muted my voice, before betrayal stole my light. She said, "Don't stay where you're only half loved." And those words planted wings in my chest. I booked my ticket. One way. No return. I packed when he wasn't around. A little every day. A life folded into suitcases. Dignity packed between fabric and hope. And still, I smiled at him every morning because he didn't deserve to watch me break. He deserved to watch me vanish. And as the weekend approached, the same weekend he planned to be with her, I was planning my escape. Not with anger, not with bitterness, but with grace, with quiet strength, with the kind of dignity only a wounded woman can carry. Because sometimes, walking away isn't weakness. It's war. And I had already chosen my battlefield. The morning he left for his weekend, he didn't even notice the difference in my eyes. He walked out humming, fixing his collar in the mirror, texting someone behind a half-smile. I watched him tie his shoes, unaware that this would be the last morning he'd ever see me in that home. He kissed my forehead like a routine, not affection. And that was the moment I knew I was doing the right thing. When the door shut, I just stood there for a while, listening to the silence he left behind. But this time, the silence didn't choke me. It freed me. I walked into the bedroom and opened the closet. My suitcases were ready, zipped, and waiting. My life was packed, piece by piece, memory by memory, dream by dream. I looked around the room one last time. The photos on the wall, the candle beside the bed, the books on his nightstand. All the things that once felt like a life, now looked like a lie. I sat at his desk, pulled out a plain white sheet of paper, and began writing. Not a goodbye. Not a plea. Just truth. Truth without tears. Truth without trembling. I wrote slowly, carefully, choosing every word with the same precision he never used with my heart. I was never meant to be your second choice. I hope one day, when the excitement fades, you realize what stability really was. Not routine, not boredom, but love. Goodbye. I folded the letter and placed it on his pillow. Not hidden, not dramatic, just there, waiting for the moment he'd return to the home he no longer deserved. I opened the window to let fresh air in and took a deep breath. For the first time in a long time, the air didn't feel heavy. I picked up my luggage and walked through the hallway. Every step felt like shedding a layer of pain. I didn't slam the door behind me. I didn't lock it with shaking hands. I just closed it gently, like a chapter one chose to end with dignity. The airport was loud, but my heart was quiet. People rushed past me, dragging their lives in suitcases, just like I was. When I reached the gate, I looked out at the runway, a long, open path leading somewhere I hadn't been in years, freedom. When they called my seat, I walked forward without looking back. London wasn't just a destination. It was a rebirth. As the plane lifted off, I rested my head against the window. The city below got smaller, like the problems I was leaving behind. I didn't cry. Not a single tear. Not because I wasn't hurt, but because I was done pouring water on dead soil. A heart that has been starved long enough eventually learns to feed itself. Hours later, when the plane landed, I stepped out into cold London air. The wind felt different. Cleaner. Honest. I smiled, not because I was healed, but because I had finally chosen myself. My friend was waiting at arrivals. When she hugged me, I didn't crumble. I stood tall. She whispered, "You made it." And for the first time in a long time, I believed those words. The first few nights weren't easy. Healing never is. Sometimes I woke up reaching for someone who wasn't there. Sometimes I questioned whether leaving was bravery or loneliness in disguise. But every time doubt whispered, I remembered that dinner table. His eyes. His words. His weekends. And the doubt died a little more each time. Meanwhile, back in that house, he still hadn't called. Not because he didn't care, but because he didn't know yet. His illusion of control was still intact. But illusions have an expiry date. On Sunday night, when he finally walked into the bedroom, he found the letter on the pillow. I wasn't there to see his reaction, but I can imagine it. The stillness, the disbelief, the shock that the woman he thought would never leave, left without begging, without fighting, without tears. He wanted control. He wanted both lives. He wanted both worlds. But he forgot that even the quiet ones can walk away. Especially the quiet ones. Days passed, then weeks, and my life slowly began to bloom again. I found work. I found laughter. I found pieces of myself I thought I had lost forever. I started living without waiting for someone's attention to validate my existence. I bought fresh flowers for my room every Sunday, the day he used to disappear. Now, Sundays belong to me. But healing is not a straight line. One evening, as I sat by the window with a cup of tea, my phone lit up with a message. His name on the screen. For a moment, my heart paused. Not because I still loved him, but because ghosts of pain have long memories. I opened the message. 3 words. I miss you. Not I'm sorry. Not I was wrong. Just I miss you. The kind of message that comes not from remorse, but from habit, from entitlement, from the fear of losing the backup plan. I stared at the screen, and I felt nothing. No anger, no longing, no hurt, just closure. The kind that doesn't need a conversation to feel complete. I didn't reply. Instead, I put the phone face down, opened the window, and let the cold London air fill the room. I realized something in that moment. I hadn't run away. I had simply walked toward the version of me I was always meant to become. A woman who wasn't a choice between weekends and weekdays. A woman who wasn't a placeholder or a safety net. A woman who finally understood her worth. And as the city lights flickered below my window, I made a silent promise to myself. I would never again stay where love had conditions. I would never again shrink so someone else could feel big. I would never again be half-loved. I chose myself. And that decision, more than anything, became my freedom.